so next up is MacLemon with emojis. How the f do they work? And you should be afraid of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seems I have a reputation to meet now. That means no pressure. Yeah, if you have never seen or heard of me, I'm MacLemon. You can find me on these interweb thingies, some of the most comfy instance of the Fediverse available. I'm still somewhere on Twitter. It's intentionally not readable because I rarely look into it. Ping me on Fediverse or somewhere else you can find me. If you want to use these social media things about my talk, please use the BalCCon hashtag and emoji what the fuck. That will work. And we'll be having a look at emoji and how do they actually work. So quick question, raise of hands. Who thinks that the things with emoji started about 10 years ago? Hands. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's very, very few hands. 20 years ago. Still very, very few hands. Okay. 50? Like, okay. A few more. Century ago? Okay, everybody's laughing, no hands anymore. More than a century? 1 hand? 2, 3? You'll be in for a surprise. Okay. Yeah, at that time when these emoji things started, the sun was shining. And we'll shine some light on that question now. Like 3,670 years ago before epoch 0. Being IT people, we use a proper point of 0, which is epoch, of course. The sun was shining on the land of the Hittites. That is roughly where Turkey is now. So this is a rough map of back then in the time. To the left-hand corner, you have the blue thing is the sea, that's water, okay? You with me? That's the Mediterranean Sea. On the upper right-hand corner, you have the Black Sea. And this Alazia island is now called Cyprus, so that you have a rough orientation where we are. And in the city of Karkemish, drinks were stored in clay jugs. Yeah, you can like a round jug with a handle, there were drinks in. And this jug was found, unearthed, rebuilt, and they found a smiley face on it. And scientifically, we can actually prove that it's actually a smiley because there's no other markings, drawings, or anything on this one or any other jug. So this is probably one of the oldest smiley faces ever reproduced in the world. This was unearthed by people in University of Bologna. And this particular jug was used for sherbet, which is a sweet lemonade drink. So people were happy with sweet things. Fast forward a little to 229 years before, that's like fast forward 3,400 years. In a city in Slovakia, a signature was found in a book about the city treasury. And that someone was really satisfied with the results, so they made a smiley face in the treasury books. I will not try to pronounce that proper name of an abbot and notary in a Cistercian cloister. I'll probably totally embarrass myself, so I'll spare you that. Come up to me if you actually want to know who that was. 10 years before epoch, getting closer to our IT reference of 0, people began to work on ASCII, the American Standard for Information Interchange. So we're getting to modern times. So let's move our time scale a little. You have the 0 on the right-hand side. We'll just move that to the left. And events are becoming a lot denser now. In the 70s, we have the Plato 4, which is a computer system. It was used to view microfiche archives. Probably many of you have no idea what a microfiche is. It's not related to fish, like animals. Basically, a fish is a piece of analog film, and you basically take a photo of a newspaper or a document and put it on a film. and because film is very reliable as a long-term medium for storage, and also very high resolution, so you can really reproduce fine details on a very small scale. And this device was used to view these things. That's a Plato 5. I could not get a free picture of a Plato 4. It had a transparent plasma display, 512 pixels squared resolution, touch screen, programmable graphics, fonts, a back projection for this film microfiche viewing, a voice synthesizer, audio recording, audio playback, a 4-voice music synthesizer, and that was in the 70s. That was really, really, really ahead of its time back then. And what else was there on this particular machine? These things. It was possible to print characters over each other. Like if you use a typewriter, type a character, go back one character, type another one, it lands on top of it. And with that machine, it was possible to do that on screen and on print. And by typing weird sequences of characters, you could actually make the pixels line up to build up a smiley, like this Victor or Optex or Victorina smileys. And people were using that and sharing, like, oh, you need to this sequence to get this smiley. And yeah, thanks to Brian Deere for sending me these actual 70s screenshots. It's wonderful. And in the early 80s, we have a person named Scott Fahlman. He proposed the using closing brace to mark ironic postings in a scientific context, because it was the Carnegie Mellon University in the United States. He also proposed for things that were too close to reality to make a frowning smiley. The frowny was invented. So, yay, we have emoticons. Isn't it wonderful? We have emoticons. Yeah. And these tilted to the left side faces, they're called the so-called Western style emoticons. In the southern hemisphere, so if you're from Australia or New Zealand, you might see them the other way around. Yep, so shout out to our Aussie friends. What else happened in 1982? Any ideas? Shout it out to me. Huh? Emoticons, huh? What else? Have you attended my last year's talk? Probably not. Email! SMTP and message format, RFC 821 and 822. They were invented in 1982 as well, so email is really old. If you want to, don't get into emails. Just, no, don't, I'm serious. There's other emoji, especially emoji styles now. This is a Japanese style. Usually the Japanese do emoji up front facing and upright, so not tilted and on the side. These are called kaomoji, from the Japanese word kao, meaning face, and moji, meaning a glyph or character. So these are literally face characters. It's a pretty fitting term for what they actually do. And these came up in ASCIINet in Japan in around 86-ish. Then there's the Korean style. Interesting thing here is they don't use any ASCII characters anymore, but they use Korean characters called yamo. And Hangul being the Korean script type, and yamo meaning character in Korean. And they look like this, for example. They had already extended ASCII characters. Of course, ASCII is 7-bit and only has 127 characters. That's not a lot. And they had to use certain encodings to make that work. And when it comes to encoding, many people think of this one. Of course, this is absolutely not possible in ASCII. If you want to have the breakdown, there's 3 different types of parentheses and other characters. You actually need a lot more characters to make this string work. And when you have emoji, and a lot of them, you need to find the user interface to pick them. So somebody came up with the idea of emoji pickers in 1987. Back then, they were not really characters, but graphics that were inserted into messages. But it did work. You could pick an emoji and attach it to your message. This is a screenshot actually from back then from the Coconut bulletin board system. And if we want to do that as characters and use more scripts, we actually need a way to describe more characters. So, yeah, Unicode came up in 1992. Unicode is a standard for characters and encoding characters. It's brought up by the Unicode Consortium, which is a non-profit organization. It relies on donations, so they don't make any money from it. And they released Unicode 1.0 in 1992. There were already smiley faces in there. Not a lot, exactly 3 of them, which is of course not a lot, but we had a frowning face and 2 different smiley faces already, and these are the code points you can see. Then something interesting happened in Japan, of course Japan being wildly crazy from our point of view. The J-phone appeared. J-phone was a Japanese mobile phone carrier back then. They brought a phone to market that could display 90 proprietary graphic characters. There were already pagers, which are basically, if you have never seen what a pager is, it's a small electronic device that can receive either a string of numbers only, like a phone number you had to call back then, or a very short string of text, like one-way SMS with no way to reply. And that was the future back then. So this phone came up with, hey, we could use characters now. Of course, this is Japanese on the screenshot, but you can see a whale in there. I'll point an arrow to it. That's a whale emoji. A tiny, it's looking towards you with a half-open mouth and spewing water. It's a terrific idea, but it was only available on this very phone, on this single device, on one carrier in Japan. So the general impact was rather negligible. But the set of emoji characters they used, these are the most important ones. The really important emojis, they were already there. There's a heart, there's different persons. Of course, cats. Cats are always important. No talk is complete without cats. Coffee, beer. Cake was already a lie back then. And of course, everybody's darling pile of poo was already in that set of characters. You can see it in the first row, 3rd from the right. Then in 1999, Shigetaka Kurita, he was working with NTT Docomo, which is another Japanese carrier. Shigetaka Kurita and his team, which consisted of one other person, created a set of symbols which were rolled out on multiple devices this time. He's often credited with having created the first emoji set, which is, as we already know now, obviously not true. But he created the first interoperable set of emojis that was rolled out in Japan across multiple characters, across multiple phones. So people could start using them actually in everyday life and be sure that the receiving end would have a way to understand that. And of course the Japanese youth picked that up pretty quickly, and being Japan, more and more people found this useful and of course entertaining. Around 2000s, these online messenger thingies came up. You maybe remember Microsoft Network, MSN, or AEM, or you might have used that one. And they started bringing their own graphic set of emojis in. And then in 2006, Google started to put emoji characters into private parts, like private set characters, into Unicode. So they started to standardize this a little and try to do some effort. And then it really took off. Apple introduced iPhone OS 2.2 with emoji support, but only if you had like a Japanese SoftBank SIM card and a SoftBank email account configured, which is of course ridiculously Apple. Luckily that nonsense came to end pretty quickly, and there were apps on the App Store available that you could download and start, and they would do some magic to enable the emoji keyboard even if you had not a Japanese SIM card. And people were actually paying money for this, just to get emoji. And with Unicode Standard 6.0, up until now, the Unicode character standard and the emoji standard were 2 different things brought out by the Unicode Consortium, and with Unicode 6 it was merged to one standard, so now emoji are officially part of the Unicode text standard. And then Apple came up with iOS 5 and released the emoji keyboard for all iPhones on the planet to use, which was wonderful. People were experimenting with that. 2 years later, Android came with 4.4 KitKat, if you still remember that, and they also implemented. In 2013, the Oxford Dictionary thought, well, let's put emoji in the official Oxford Dictionary of the English language. So emoji is now officially a word. And it's described as a small digital image or icon used to express an idea or emotion. Emoji liven up your text messages with tiny smiley faces. That's a pretty accurate description. In 2013 also came up the Emojipedia. You know Wikipedia? You do, yeah. Emojipedia is just for emoji. It's like an encyclopedia exclusively for everything emoji. If you need to look up anything, you'll find it there. Then since 2014, we celebrate World Emoji Day. It's a thing. It happens on 17th of July. Why on 17th of July? You can see the answer up there. There's the official Unicode emoji character for a calendar, and it displays a date of July 17th. This is why we have this. But why is that date on that emoji? Blame Apple, because on 17th of July in 2002, Apple released a calendaring application called iCal, and that was the release date. So they had this date on the application icon while it was not running, and the current date while it was running, which confused the hell out of people. So they had to fix it, but Apple's pretty much the reason why we have Emoji Day on July 17th now every year. And 2015, for the first time, an emoji was declared Word of the Year. So face with tears of joy is the first emoji to become Word of the Year worldwide. Interesting. Since 2016, you can use emoji as a ad targeting selector on Twitter. Also in 2016, we had the first EmojiCon, a conference, multi-day conference about emoji. You see this starts to escalate in some way. And also the first interoperable emoji set by Shigetaka Kurita from 1997 was exhibited in the Museum of Modern Arts. So now emoji are officially art as well. Since 2017, you can search for emoji on Twitter even if you're not doing ad targeting, but just as a plain user. So it's a democratization of emoji search. And in 2018, several larger vendors agreed on this depiction of the pistol emoji. We'll hear more about that in a moment. And now that we have 2019, so what do we do? Since we're working with Unicode and stuff, we need to have a look at encoding and how these are implemented. Well, encoding, of course, you'll think of this again. Let's start simple. ASCII, the American Standard for Information Interchange. It was invented for teletype terminals in the 70s, 60s, 70s. They were derived from the teleprinter or telegraph. It was 7 bits only, so it means 2 to the 7th, 128 characters. 1 byte of memory in a computer equals exactly 1 character. That's reasonably simple for a computer to work with. From 0 to 31, you have control characters like a carriage return, a line feed, escape. The bell character, it's what makes your terminal beep when you press tab to autocomplete. Control sequences like moving your cursor, they are not part of ASCII, but letters, printable characters, A to Z, math functions like plus, minus, division, multiplication, they are. But no accented characters like we use in Serbian, for example. There's a lot of accented characters. So if we take the text string Balkan, we're at Balkan here, so we'll use that as an example, and use the bit representation for those characters in ASCII. You see it in binary, in decimal, in hex. Just ignore the lower 2 lines. Look at the binary. They all start with a 0. The first bit is always a 0. because we only use 7 of those 8 bits. But in 7 bits, we can barely fit enough characters to type any text, even if it's only Latin characters. So we need a lot more. And if you want to have a look at your complete ASCII table, just get out your computer. Pretty much any modern operating system has a man page for ASCII on any BSD or Linux or Mac. And you can look at that table. So what do we do with those remaining bit characters from 128 to 255? Well, you can use those. It's called extended ASCII, and this upper half can be localized to represent, for example, accented characters like they're used in French, or Hajeks like in Serbian, or other characters that do not fit the very simple Latin alphabet. Of course, you have to somehow declare which characters are presented there, because you only have a limited space, and some other alphabet, like Greek, would use different characters. So how do you get by? Well, it's called encoding, and it describes how to understand this upper half of the encoding. Interestingly enough, there are several hundred code pages, different code pages, that make use of those remaining bits. And some encodings differ by only 8 characters. You might have heard of ISO 8859-1. It's also called Latin 1. You may have heard of ISO 8859-15. It differs by exactly 8 characters. The major difference being they added a currency symbol for the euro. This is why if you want to put up a euro somewhere, you need a different encoding. So if you have different encodings, sometimes you need to translate from one to the other. This is a really, really non-trivial exercise. And it's that kind of non-trivial. There's even a special word for when you make mistakes in translating, like from one code page to another and you get the wrong one. That word is mojibake. It's Japanese. We already know the word moji. It means character. And bake is a Japanese word. It derives from bakeru. And that means to change something with the implicit meaning of changing it not for the better. So you're changing something for the worse. So mojibake means, yeah, pretty much exactly what results from mistranslating stuff. And you can do that with multiple mistakes and end up with terrible things in text. If you ever had to migrate a mailing list from Mailman 2 to Mailman 3, you'll run into those problems. In German, I noticed many of you are speaking a little German at least. There's this funny thing, it's called Scheiß encoding. Of course, it means shit encoding. That S is a sharp S. It's already an extended character for ASCII. So you need proper encoding for that word to work. If it doesn't work, you may have seen people wearing this t-shirt, because something with the encoding went wrong. Now, this is not possible in ASCII. You need Unicode to represent that special character. It's called the replacement character. So there even is a character to, okay, I have no idea what this is. Let's put this in to designate, I have no idea what it is. So what do we do? Can't we find a standard that works for everything? You know, standards? There's so many to choose from. Yes. Yep, let's invent one that works for everything. That has proven to work. But actually it does work. It's called UTF, the Unicode Transformation Format. And it comes in 3 flavors, UTF-8, 16, and 32. UTF-8 is an encoding method with a variable length. So a character can be either 1 byte in memory, 2, 3, or 4. UTF-16 is either 2 or 4 bytes, and UTF-32 is always 4 bytes. But if you don't need all those 4 bytes, it's wasteful. So you need a lot of memory or storage space that is unused. So UTF-8 is actually what you want to use. It's a very versatile format. It delivers over 90% of the world's web pages. And the second most used is GIF-JIS, which is a Japanese format, and that is less than 1% already. So UTF-8 is really the dominant encoding format these days, and it's what you want to use. How does that work with multiple bytes? I mean, how do I know if I'm using 1 or 2 or 3? It's quite nifty. It's a surprisingly simple solution. If we look at that code point, that's how Unicode characters are categorized. The first 127 characters, the first bit in memory is a 0, like in ASCII. So UTF-8 is 100% identical to ASCII for those first characters, which is great because it means backward compatibility. It's easy to use. It also means if we make that first bit a 1 instead of a 0, we have a flag that tells us, wait, there's something different coming up. You need to pay attention. And for a 2-byte character, we start with a 1 on the leading byte telling you, hey, pay attention, there's something different. We put in another 1, meaning 1, another 1, that's 2 1s. Now we have a 2-byte character, and since binary has this wonderful thing of another character called 0, we have a way to terminate the series of 1s that we send. So 110 means 2 bytes, and now we start with the next thing. 3 bytes, you can already imagine how this works. You have 1, 1, 1, 0. Now you know it's 3 bytes, and you use the rest up for your remaining data that you need to convey. And every subsequent byte starts with a 1 and an immediate 0. So you know it cannot be a leading byte, because the first one always has at least 2 1s. So if you find a byte sequence, it's clear if you're on a leading byte or if you're on a subsequent one. So you can easily synchronize to where does a character start, because it's totally easy to find. And for characters, they work just the same. One important takeaway here is all emoji are 4-byte characters. Of course, encodings, and UTF-8 being a universal encoding, encodings lead to problems. That's just the nature of encodings. You might have worked with databases like MySQL or MariaDB. It comes with an encoding or collation, meaning a sorting order, called UTF-8. I put that in quotes because that UTF-8, as they call it, only does 3-byte sequences. Meaning if you want to put a comment on that WordPress blog with an emoji, it does not work. I mean, you can send it, but it does not get stored properly in the database. This is why in 2015, MySQL added an encoding called UTF-8 multi-byte 4. So now you can represent emoji in the database for your postings or comments. Luckily, the MySQL installer now defaults to using that, but if you have an older blog, you need to convert that. Have fun with that. Of course, WordPress being written in a language called PHP. PHP only can work with 8-byte characters. Yes, it's 2019, if you want to check your calendar. What if you want to use more than this archaic set? Well, there's the multi-byte string PHP module extension, and unless you load that, you cannot do anything but 8 bits. That extension is available since PHP 4.0.6. Of course, you have all your applications updated to 7.2, which is the current supported version. I'm pretty sure you don't have any legacy code around Modi anymore. It's also not security supported, so there's really no excuse to not use that. If you use JavaScript, it uses 16-bit so-called code units, meaning every character is at least 16 bits, and if it does not fit in there, you use just 2 of those 16-bit code units. It's kind of wasteful, but it's safe to use with emoji. That's fine. If you do Java, it also uses 16-bit code units, but they can only use 1 code unit with 16 bits to encode a character, not 2. So no emoji in Java. I'm sorry. There's a separate library called Emoji Java if you need emoji in your enterprise applications. Python 3, all the strings are UTF-8 and is fully supported, so that's fine. If you're using Rust, it gets more complex. You can use it in strings, that's fine. If you want to use it as identifiers for your variables, you can only use 2-byte Unicode characters, so no emoji as variables in Rust. Kotlin is pretty much the same. If you go for Golang, the Google language, 2-byte Unicode characters in identifiers, yes, you can do that, but only if they start with an ASCII character, wherever that is. But if you need to use model view controller in Chinese, this is how you do it. I will not try to pronounce the Chinese. I'm sorry. Swift, being a quite modern language invented by Apple, it's used for iPhones and Macs to program applications. It does fully support emoji. What does full support mean? You can write code like that. I mean, who doesn't want hearts and swirls in their code? I mean, it's wonderful. That is still not enough for your emoji programming needs. Use emoji code. It is the most emoji compatible programming language. It's open source language and it's written exclusively in emoji. It does support ASCII legacy characters in strings, but not for identifiers. So it's pretty much your emoji singularity for programming code. Let's have a look at implementations. How does Unicode implement emoji in the encoding standard? For Unicode, for each character, you have a code point that uniquely identifies the character. It's U plus and then a number. And you have a UTF-8 byte sequence that you can use to encode that character. For example, here's an example of a hamster face, not the hamster dance, if you remember that. But people want to talk about more than hamsters. So with persons, it already gets more complex. You have noticed maybe on your phone, there's person emojis like smileys and people, and they're totally yellow. You might think, yes, that's where we're going to. Most people do not look like Lego figures. You might have noticed that when walking around here. They're not yellow in their face. So something's not right with your keyboard. This is where we can start combining multiple emojis. There's something called a skin tone modifier, which means you can take a person emoji, add a second emoji, which is a skin tone modifier, and you get a person with a different skin color. So you can represent all people in the world. That's a great thing. Now, nobody's excluded anymore. I mean, the world's not Lego figures. But you still can, you don't even exclude Lego figures. You can use those for everyone. It's a 2 code point sequence. You have the person emoji and the modifier. And if your font understands how to use those, it will combine them into a single face with that skin color. That's great. It ends up with emoji being 4-byte characters, 4 bytes for the person, 4 bytes for the skin color. So you have an 8-byte sequence for a single character now. That's vastly different from ASCII, if you remember. And of course, there's a standardized scale. It's called the Fitzpatrick scale. It's named after the person, Thomas B. Fitzpatrick, who invented that scale to standardize the expression of human skin colors. And such a modifier always alters the appearance of the character that came before it. So the modifier always works to the left-hand side. Sadly, these skin tone modifiers can only be applied to person emojis. Of course, it would be nice to have them work with coffee. Some people like their coffee black, some people like their coffee lighter with milk. Or beer. There's different types of beers. Toast would totally make sense. Sorry, they don't work. It's tragic, but yeah. You can only use skin tone modifiers with toast. They also don't work with milk, though milk could have, in theory, some skin. But no, they don't do it. You may also have seen there's flags. There's a lot of flags in emoji. There's probably even multiple pages of flags, like the checkered flag. It's usually waved when you end a race. So now we have a goal to reach. That is, understand how flags in Unicode work. They're very nifty. 2 examples. I traveled to here from a country called Austria, Österreich, and we're here in Republika Srpska, and these are the two flags for these national countries. Of course, the Unicode standard, being very thoughtful, wants to implement flags in a way that is future-proof. So countries come and go. Some countries disappear. They get split up into other countries, into multiple countries. How do you make a standard that works for countries that do not exist yet? Not a real problem, but they found a very interesting way. There's an ISO standard which gives every country a 2-character shortcut. It's ISO 3166-1. That's not really important, but it designates the characters RS for Republika Srpska and AT for Austria. Now we have a simple identifier, and when a new country comes up, we can just take 2 more characters. And the Unicode standard has a special set. It's called the regional indicator symbols. They usually look like a character with a dashed outline, like a box around them. And if you type those characters in succession, your font will say, oh, well, that's a regional indicator R, a regional indicator S. I know RS is Serbia. I need to replace that with a flag. Your font will start putting away those characters and putting a flag up. You don't want to know how long I set to make my slides display those characters without making a flag out of it, just so that I could show you. But this works for countries non-existing, so you just need an update to your font, but not an update to the standard. So this is a future-proof, it's very nifty. There's a few flags for not really countries, but geopolitical, it makes sense to have a flag for the European Union, and if you use the regional indicator symbols E and U for EU, you get a European flag. Nice thing. There's a few more, but you can look that up yourselves or find things on your keyboard. You might find Scottish things as well. There's more flags like this one. I've written the code points beneath it. It's a flag. It's 4 Unicode code points, but it's just 1 character. So why is that? Adds up to actually 14 bytes of UTF sequence. 1 flag, 14 bytes. Why is that so complex? Well, let's decompose that flag and see how it's actually built. There's a character for a white flag. It's just a plain white flag. Then there's some magic, and there's a rainbow. And the U plus 200D, it's called a zero width joiner. It's a character that has no width, and it joins the characters left and right to it to 1. It combines those. So that's the magic. It combines a white flag with a rainbow, and you end up with a rainbow flag. And the white flag itself already consists of 2 code points. So now you know many flags can be combined like that. The white flag itself is already 2 code points. Why is that? White flag. Well, is there multiple white flags? I mean, how much artistic impression can you build into a white flag? Not a lot. More than you think. There's a white flag text character, which is not an emoji. That's really a text character. But there is a white flag emoji character as well. And that other modifier tells your font, please do not use the text representation, but use the emoji representation. It's called the variation selector 16. What a wonderful name. And it tells your font to, that last character, please make it an emoji. Same way, you can put up a skull and crossbones pirate flag. You just start with a black flag and skull and crossbones. And skull and crossbones actually exist as a text character and as an emoji. And you use the variation selector 16 to tell your font which one to use. Okay, so now we can build pretty much any flag in the Unicode standard with emojis. What else is there? Who has a modern phone? Like last 2-3 years or so? Yeah. You might have seen there's gender modifiers. Huh? Okay. Have you seen vampires? I mean, not the movie, but an actual vampire. Graf Dracul. The one with a T. Okay. You can take Dracula, the Dracula emoji. There is a Dracula emoji to start with. But the other one, that's not Dracula. Dracula is a male person, and the other one is clearly a more female person. So how do we get there? We already heard the zero-width joiner that combines two characters together. Well, this is what we do here. We take the emoji for Dracula, the emoji for female, and voila, you have Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Isn't that great? I mean, you can represent more people in the world. I mean, pretty much exactly 50% more people of the world. Oh, actually 100% more. Because male, female, yeah, it's important. Everyone should be able to use emoji. What about those Fitzpatrick skin tone modifiers now? Yes, we can adjust the paleness of our vampire by using a skin tone modifier and make them more pale or more black. So emoji is really versatile in combining and allowing for many, many things, because people want to express many things. People are diverse in the world, and Unicode standard wants to enable all people to be represented by emoji. It's an important thing. The zero-width joiner can be used with multiple person emojis to represent a family. Of course, there are certain things and brain constructions that states think what a family should look like, but the reality is families can be very different, but they are a family, and no family is illegal. So Unicode can show all families that you can think of and that represent your family. Yes, yeah, that is a font limitation. Technically you can combine more, but I don't know of any font that allows for more than 2 children in a family. And yes, you can use skin tone modifiers with each of those. I have not made an example, that took me already an hour to show that one. So, are emoji a language? We've seen emoji being used in programming language. What about emoji themselves? Are they a language? Trevor Noah, who does the Daily Show, called them contemporary cave drawings. Is emoji a language in itself? Are emoji hieroglyphics? Hieroglyphics being a rather unspecific term, consisting mostly of pictograms, schematic graphics. Emoji are close, but they are not hieroglyphics, because in hieroglyphics, a pictogram maps to a very specific term, and only to that term. So if you take a cow, it can only mean cow. But people want to talk about more than cows. Most people do. I mean, more than factual cows. So emoji are more a meta language. They're not a language in their own, but they augment our languages, all the languages we speak. At last night's karaoke party, we had songs in 7 languages. So emoji, no, there was no emoji song, but emoji are used in the abstract context of words and extend that context within that context. So if you take a cat is relatively straightforward as a character, but what you want to do with that cat or to that cat, it's not really expressed from the emoji itself. Can be more complex. This character in emoji is called Tropical Drink. It might be a tequila sunrise. It might be a 3rd Long Island iced tea. Does that really matter the next morning? We don't know. Or that one. When sending this character to an astrophysicist, they ask, what about that planet? Other people will not read a planet into that emoji. It has a name, it's called Cookie, so it's a very friendly emoji. It's certainly Cookie Monster's favorite character. It looks like a chocolate chip cookie to most people. What about that one? Any ideas what this is? Cracker. You're wrong. That is Samsung's interpretation of what a cookie should look like. So meaning if you send a message to your friend, hey, We're watching a movie tonight. Bring cookies. Bring emoji cookie. And they have a Samsung phone and they bring the wrong snacks to the movie. The horror. You can't do that. I mean, you have translation problems now depending on which platform your friends are on. Like, emojis look different on different phones. But even if the emoji looks the same, okay, I see smiling faces in the crowd, you know what I'm up to. This is called an eggplant in English. In German we usually say melanzani or aubergine. It's a vegetable. It's an edible vegetable. It was forbidden to be used as a hashtag on Instagram for someone. I don't know why Instagram discriminates against vegetables. It's not really a misunderstanding because it clearly is a vegetable, unless you put some textual context around it that alters the meaning. It's still the same emoji, but you can read other things into it. Sorry, you cannot unsee that. Another one. It's a peach. It's a fruit. It was not banned from Instagram as a hashtag. It's not been censored in the United States. These are usually very prone to censoring. But they can have different interpretations. So a peach is often used as an interpretation for your butt. What about that one? I already hinted at it. It's called pistol. If you know a little bit about guns, it looks like a pistol. If you receive a message like that, hey, visit us next weekend and bring the... Might you be worried when you're receiving such a message? Maybe the message your friend actually sent looked like that, and it was an invitation to a garden party. Bring your water pistol, let's have some fun. It's summer outside. So you get translation errors from the emoji, depending on which iPhone or Android phone or Samsung phone or online platform you're working with. Especially that one is super problematic because I'll show you a few different graphical representations among different platforms. It varies from water pistol, toys, toy gun, super soaker, revolver, to space zapper. And some companies said, well, we're having a gun, it promotes violence, let's change it to a water pistol. While other companies said, well, our space zapper does not really represent pistol properly, let's change it to a pistol. Now, depending on your version, your operating system, your vendor, and your platform, you have multiple ways to misinterpret that, and you have no way to properly convey a message with that emoji. So that can be really dangerous, well, because your invitation to a garden party may lead up to having a SWAT team kicking down your door. So that's a serious problem, because emoji are also a mirror of society. 70% of emoji used are usually happy, 15% are rather neutral, and still 15% of emoji are sad. So, but we know that not 70% of our life is happy. Our online communication is some kind of idealized communication. We like to give more of the happy and give less of the sad away. Emoji are also stereotypical. I'll show you a set of emoji, and you shout out to me where those emoji might be used most. What do you think? Holidays, okay. Think more of a regional location on the planet.
Waterboarding on Cuba.
Waterboarding on Cuba, okay. That's a new one. The solution to this is really actually Hawaii. Yes, it's stereotypical. You have palm trees, sunsets, tropical drinks, surfing. What about those? Okay. Louder. Any location you can think of that would somehow match that? The solution is Las Vegas, Nevada. And we all know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Another one. The association is drugs, okay, that's correct. But why and where? School? Oh, interesting, okay, yeah. The solution to that one is Portugal and Australia. Okay, some people have paid attention to drug laws. In 2011, Portugal started decriminalizing all drug possession and use for recreational use or for medical use. Like everything's legal. Everything. The result of that political decision was actually less use of drugs, less abuse of drugs, resulting in less people needing to be treated for drug abuse, with an overall increase in health across the whole country. Of course, police forces don't want to grab your bag of weed now, but can use their time more properly to fight corruption and other criminal activities. And the healthcare system considers a drug addiction like any other illness and starts treating it. The result is great savings for the taxpayer, a better working healthcare system, and a more healthy society, just by allowing that. And also, that really, really helpful drug policy is mirrored in emoji use because there's more discourse about drugs. People learn more about how drugs work and what is dangerous to their health and what is not. So that's a very important mirror of society that you can see in the use of emoji. Something different. Have you heard of Markov chains? Yes, that's a good answer. Markov chain is a series of characters that only go together, or that often go together, or a series of words that often go together. You can have that with emoji, like these tears of joy 3 times. Must have been a very funny evening. They're usually very homogeneous, like 2 or 3 times the same emoji. There's very few that have a set of different emoji that always go together, like these hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil monkeys, or hearts in different colors. And depending on how sleepy you are, you might repeat those. So, how do we differentiate the language used with emoji now? Let's have a look at it. There's spoken language, there's written language, and they both come in an informal way and in a formal way. Of course, a formal spoken conversation is like having a presentation or speech, radio moderation. A written example for formal language is a book or printed newspaper, or maybe even a blog posting. Where the informal language is your everyday spoken word, your local dialect that you use, your local words that are maybe only known to Novi Sad. Language uses intonation, gestures, grimaces. And emoji are that representation in a written context of informal language. They augment that. So this is where the emoji are located. And the repetition of emoji also represents time. Like, if you had just a funny moment, you might have 1 laughing smiley. If it was really, really, really funny, you might do 3. So if you had a longer time of fun, you might use more emojis. So the string of emoji represents time. Clapping hands. There was applause. 1 pair of clapping hands. There was a huge applause. 3 clapping hands. So they give a spatial and timely context. They're written motions and written emotions in time. What about things that there are no emoji for? I mean, no emoji? I mean, God. Are there things that there's no emoji for? There are things that there's no emoji for, like sex. I mean, it's complicated. There's also no emoji for vanilla. But humans being creative beings and emoji being a meta language, depending on the context and cultural background, humans do find ways to write about sex with emoji. You already know at least 2 emojis that you can use and some others. I also know that few of you are, or some or many of you are within IT or even IT security. Do emoji have an IT security relevant aspect? I claim yes, and that is a strong yes. There is no emoji for IT security, but you could make it work in some way. Okay, it's not officially, but it kind of fits. It just, but what else can be used for emojis? You may have heard of a messaging system, a network called Matrix. There's the Riot client for it. Of course, it's an end-to-end encrypted messenger. And you know, with end-to-end encryption, you need to authenticate your peers and compare fingerprints, like, are you that fingerprint? Yes, I am. I am this gibberish of hex numbers. And Riot uses a funny way which translate your hex fingerprint into a series of emojis that you compare. And if you have the same series of emojis, you have technically just compared a fingerprint. I really need to speed up. Of course, emoji being interpreted differently, you get translation problems, so they write the English names below it to make it easier. But that works quite well. There's smart TVs. We're probably not so smart. You can hook them up to your Wi-Fi, unless you have an emoji in your SSID, in the Wi-Fi name. If you have a Samsung TV that will scan for your networks, and when it has a list, it will cache that list to disk, and then will display that list. And while displaying that list, it will crash. You now have a denial of service attack from your Wi-Fi to your TV. When you reboot that TV and go to Wi-Fi again, it immediately displays the cached list before scanning again. Now you need to factory reset your TV to make it work again. And don't hook it up to Wi-Fi. Apple had a very interesting way with emoji and really improving security. You can set a passcode for your phone that when you unlock it, you have to enter a passcode to unlock it, and then you can use it. Works with many platforms. This problem was iOS specific. You could enable the emoji keyboard for entering and setting your passcode. I'll be super secret. I'll put emoji in my passcode. You lock your phone. You want to unlock your phone. You cannot switch to the emoji keyboard anymore. That phone's really secure now. Happened. They did fix that. So, sorry. They did not fix it by allowing the emoji keyboard on the lock screen, but by not allowing emoji to be set as passphrases. It's a bummer. I like emojis. You might have a monitoring solution that might run some old Perl code. And you can have a lot of fun by putting emoji in your HTTP response headers. That might lead to false down alerts, even if the site is up. It happens. So what's the future of emoji? What's coming next? Probably not really next. Some things are already here. Animoji, animated emoji. They move. If you have a face tracking camera on your phone, they can mimic your face with an emoji. And you can record that as a video and send it to someone. So you can have like a little tiger or a unicorn talk like you. It's a lot of fun. I don't see the business application for it yet, but yeah, you can share that. There's Memoji. Like you build a character that looks like yourself, but as a drawing, as an emoji style drawing. If you have an old Nintendo Wii console, you might remember those Mii characters. They basically already worked that way several years ago. Then there's custom emoji, especially messenger platforms and online platforms try to use those to get more emoji that specifically are targeted for their audience. For example, this is a list of the special emojis that are used on the chaos.social Mastodon instance, because anarchy is always more fun with friends. And there's some special characters relating to that very special community, like the fairy dust, which is an iconic rocket character used by the CCC. What else is interesting and coming with emoji? Court cases. They're increasingly mentioned in court documents. People are having legal fights over emoji or over messages sent with emoji. And it's about how to interpret those emoji. I mean, this can be very difficult linguistically. There's also the emoji mashup bot. It's a Twitter account if you still use that. It basically takes two emoji, theoretically combines them with a zero with joiner, and ends up with a combination like that, like party and vomiting. Should you really combine each emoji with each other? Probably not. The Unicode Consortium also explicitly tells you not to, but technically that would be possible, and these are possible representations of absurd combinations. If you want to use emoji on your computer and you're not using a Mac or iOS, because they have really, really good support for typography, fonts, and emoji, there's the OpenMoji project. It's an open source and free, libre, and gratis font that you can use on your operating system to get a full Unicode 12 set of emoji on any operating system for free to use. So you can finally put those emoji into your terminal to represent your Git status. If you know things that should be emoji but that are not yet existing as emoji, you can make your own proposals to the Unicode Consortium. Like, oh, I have this sport or recreation or thing or person type that should be represented by emoji. You can enter your own proposals. You can see what's already been proposed, if it has been rejected or approved. There's a lot of documentation and guidelines on how to write and what to think about before making such a proposal, and also understanding the technical limitations that are possible within the Unicode standard. And you can also study other proposals that have been successfully submitted. So one day, your own emoji that you came up with that you think is important for the world to communicate can be on everybody's phone. Think about that. You can help people communicate about new things by submitting that. And coming 2020, we're now at Unicode 12.1. 12.0 was the last change that included emoji. 12.1 added a single Unicode character, so we needed to update the standard because Japan started a new era with a new emperor, and they added the kana representation of the emperor's name, so that's why we had to update emoji, the Unicode standard. With Unicode 13 coming 2020, meaning next year, we get a lot of new emoji. And here's the part with IT security relevance. People will update their fucking phones to get those new emojis, and instantly. Like, this is important, I need this new emoji on my phone now. I don't care for the security content of that update. It's in there as well, okay, fine, I'll take it. I want those emoji. And this is why emoji are important for phone security. People will update for the emoji, not for any security problem, be as bad as you can imagine. That's a reality of IT departments these days already that run large amounts of phones and mobile device management systems. And what new emojis are coming? Ninja, of course important. A potted plant, a mammoth, a magic wand. You might already have an idea how that might be interpreted or not. Screwdrivers, very important thing. Elevators. And as a world exclusive, I can now leak the graphical representation of one of the upcoming emojis. It's the ninja emoji. Wonderful. It's great, huh? Isn't it? If you want to take a picture, you can, but you get the slides anyway. And with that, I want to close. I want to say thanks to Brian Deere for sending me the Plato and Coconut images and screenshots from the 70s, especially from the emoji picker he created back then. Very many thanks to Gretchen McCulloch. She did the linguistic and semiotic studies on emoji, like how do they work with language. And to the SwiftKey emoji report. If you have been using the SwiftKey keyboard on your phone, the emoji you typed were statistically analyzed into an emoji usage report worldwide that gave us a lot of insight about how people use and communicate with using emojis. So thank you to you all for using that keyboard so I could give a talk and rant an hour about emoji. Are there any questions? Do we have time for questions? We'll take two quick ones. Question?
Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
So, do you think that we are going to see keyboards in the future that will have embedded emoji icons, and what about emojis in the domains?
Can you speak up a little?
Do you think, what's your opinion of if you're going to see any keyboards with emoji embedded in the layout in the future, and what about emojis in the domains?
Emoji in domains are already possible because we have internationalized domain names. So if you go to okay, snowman is a Unicode character but not an emoji character, but there are already emoji domains. They're usually Punycode encoded with this XN dash and then the hex representation. But if you go to, I don't know one by heart now, but there are Unicode domains and they usually work in most modern browsers already. And keyboards, yes, I'm sure there are keyboards with emoji buttons already online.
There is hammer and signal. It's already
hammer and signal. Okay, so there's already domains with that. There was one question over there, I think. I remember. Yes. Yeah. Just a second for the microphone.
Well, thank you. That was fun to listen to. I have only one quick question, and it's not on mine. It's from the community on Twitter and the set community. Why don't we have Bitcoin emoji?
I don't know. I don't know of any explicit currency emoji, but there are a lot of currency symbols like euro, dollar, yen, and many others already in the Unicode standard. If you want a cryptocurrency in there, you can propose that to the Unicode consortium. Please look up if they have any objections or reasons why they would incorporate that or not. I can quite imagine that they are rather unlikely to include cryptocurrency symbols into the Unicode standard. Telegnum, you have an addition to that?
Yes, since 2017 there is a Unicode character for Bitcoin.
Oh, there is. Okay, I did not know that. It's great. I learn a lot when giving these talks. Thank you very much. Can we take one more? So one last question? Anyone? Nope? I'll take further questions over a beer. Thank you very much for your time.